Andrew, how are you, buddy? So, listen, you have an incredible golf swing. There's just really two things we're going to talk about today. They're going to fix the steepness in your swing. But in all honesty, you have mechanics to play at the highest level at the age that you're at now. With a little bit of work, you have fantastic understanding of what the clubs do. Yes, you're steep and you don't really understand that yet. That's going to be pretty easy to fix. But everything else that you're doing in your swing is really so good. With just a little bit of tweaking, you can play phenomenal golf. So let me talk to you about the two big things that are going on. We're going to start with the down the line stuff first. So one thing, you're very flexible at this age, and so you really don't make much of a hip turn at all, and that's actually not going to be something that's going to work out in your favor. So I've got footage of Tiger up here in the early 2000s, and you'll see even he, at that time when he was super fit, super flexible, and very young, notice how much more he lets his hips come in. You can tell by where the left knee is. So let's just draw a vertical line on the outside of your left knee and the outside of Tiger's left knee. Now, because you have such phenomenal mechanics in your swing, little things start making a huge difference. And this is one of those little things. We're going to talk more about this face on as well. But notice how his left knee is out past his toes a little bit, and yours is kind of inside your toes. You're just restricting your hip turn. You can do this right now because you're very young, you're very flexible. But when you do that, it changes so many dynamics in your swing. It really changes the timing of it. So I'm going to talk about that first, then I'm going to come back and talk about the hands and the club at the top of the swing. So long story short, you want to allow a little bit more rotation. Rotation creates depth in the swing. And right now, you're really kind of, not straining is the right word, but you're really stretching out the arms and hands and shoulders to get the hands in this position in your rib cage, where you could relax a little bit and move your arms and hands a little bit less and let your hips turn a little bit more, and that will help your hands and body move a little bit more in sync and help get the hands deeper in relationship to the body. And what I mean by that is that as the club's going back, if we draw a line, I want you to watch. I'm going to put a quick line up here. Tiger's forearms at address roughly. And watch how they go back, because he's immediately turning his hips. Watch his left knee. See how it's starting to move immediately in sync with the hands? And that keeps his hands inside that line as he goes back. Now let's do the same thing on your forearms here and see how they do it. And you notice how your hands start immediately moving outside that line. That's because your arms and hands are moving a little bit out of sync with your body turn. So you're getting a little bit too much what we call arm elevation, shoulder elevation, too soon. So you can relax the arms a little bit, let your hips turn a little bit more, your body turn a little bit more to help your hands go inside that line. And that will help because that's a shallower move. Rotation creates depth and it helps shallow out the golf swing a little bit. If you didn't rotate at all, but you're kind of in that ballpark and you're really not rotating much, so you just kind of lift your arms a little bit more to go to the top, then of course it's hard to shallow out because you don't have any rotation in your swing. And then because of this, as you start down, I'm going to bring you to left arm parallel to the ground. And note how I can already start to see the back of your left leg here. Because you didn't rotate very much going back, it's very easy for you to get your hips very open very early. And you don't actually need that, because that's also going to steepen the swing. Because anytime you start rotating, no matter how flexible you are, your hands are going to start moving out this way toward the target line. So what we'll see in Tiger's swing is that, A, as he goes back, hands are going to stay a little bit more inside that line because he's rotating just a little bit more than you are at the beginning. That allows his hands and arms and shoulders to not be so strained going back and stretched. So it gives him a little bit more slack in the muscles in his body. So as he starts down and he starts to rotate, it doesn't just yank his hands out toward the target line too steeply like we are with you. Now, as we get him down to left arm parallel, note that I can still see a little bit of his left knee in front of his body, in front of his right knee, whereas yours is long line. I'm starting to see the left calf or the back of your left legs here at left arm parallel. And note how that's got you rotating more, because eventually, once you start turning, it's going to pull your upper body around with you once you start moving that lower body. And so, so now, Your hands are a little bit more out closer to the ball. You can see Tiger's hands are basically kind of just in front of his right bicep here, and yours are more out past your bicep toward the center of your chest. And this is all just due to this lower body rotation, not having enough lower body rotation going back, and then because you're so good at using your hips and getting your weight transfer on the way down, it just pulls your hands out toward the target line too much, and so now your hands are further closer to the ball than Tiger's. Another way to look at this is if you just drew a line up kind of from the back of your left hand, and you'll see where it is in the back of his left hand. Notice how it's kind of around the back of your neck, and his are a little bit like kind of the base of the collar of your shirt. This is again just because you fired those hips so much. So more rotation going back, and then you don't have to be so aggressive coming down with the hips, because as he keeps going down, you'll see right now I can start to see the back of his left leg here as his hands are down to about hip high. And now he's starting to get, once we get the hands down past the pocket, you can start to see that left calf. And you're just ahead of the curve. You're doing too much, too well, so your hips are really firing hard. And when your hands are at that same spot, give or take a little bit, your hands are about just below your pocket, right in your pocket. Notice how much of your left leg we can see and how little of Tiger we can see. You're just in a much bigger hurry to get those hips open, and of course, again, all that rotation throws the club and hands out toward the ball. You can see where your club head is way outside your hands here at this point. This is going to lead to the pull that you hit, and Tiger's club head is still lagging behind a little bit because it's just not rotated so hard from the top. So that's all that's really happening with this. Now, one other thing I want to talk about, again, other things here, just phenomenal, beautiful release, great body position, great balance, all of the stuff is awesome, man. World class, so really, really good job. One other thing I want to talk about, this left wrist at the top, this is also helping you create and pull. So notice that the club face in relationship to your forearm is a little bit shut, and that's because this left wrist, zoom in a little bit more, is a little too bowed. You've started to square the face a little bit too much too soon, and so you can see there's a little bit of tiny amount of bowing in the wrist. And again, we use Tiger, which is a great model for you, this early 2000s swing. Notice how much more his left wrist is cupped at the top. He's not trying to square that face so early, so if we put you guys side by side, then you can see how much more your left wrist is bowed slightly. In Tiger, you can see his knuckles. If we just drew like a truly straight line out from here, his knuckles actually are up past that forearm line, whereas yours are kind of a little bit below your forearm line. So what you need to feel at the top is that this left wrist maintains the cupping that it had on the dress. Now it won't, it'll start to flatten past you. But looking at the tour data that I have from the Hack Motion, this is a video that I've got coming out this week, I can see that their data shows that they keep these wrists pretty neutral or cupped slightly, what we call extension, all the way until very late in the downswing. So you'll notice as I walk Tiger through his swing a little bit longer, you'll see that cupping that he has keeps the club face much more square at the top than yours. Yours is very shut, and of course you're fighting the pull. So this alone, just by getting this little bit of extension in your wrist, is going to open that club face up and help get rid of those pulls as well. And you combine that with the hip turn going back and the little stuff that I talked about earlier, you can see again here, Tiger's wrist is still cupped, right? It's still got that little bit of cupping in it, and yours is obviously going to continue to want to flatten even more, bow even more as you start down, and this is something that can cause not only shut the club face, but it can steepen the plane as well. So, long story short, feel that left wrist is maintaining the cupping all the way to the top, and it doesn't go until very, very late in the swing. Now, I want to talk about the face-on view. Really has to do with your hips again, because you're so flexible that you really don't have to move your weight back to that trail leg as much as you should. And so this gets you also to the point where your hip, if you draw a line on your hip here, as you're going back, you do a good job shifting. You start moving off of that right hip point a lot early. You can see right here, you're already shifting way off of it. And again, these muscles, even as flexible as you are, they can only stretch so much. So eventually, once you start doing this, you you start moving this way, you start to rotate, and that pulls your hands and everything down out toward the target line. And again, if we use Tiger here as an example, and I put a line on his hip, you're going to see that he's going to stay there a lot longer. He's going to move even a little bit deeper into it than you do. So now, if we get you guys both at the top of the swing, notice how much more stress you put on your body. All the muscles that go through your whole upper body and legs and attached to your pelvis, they're stretched and strained, and they're already moving back to the lead side. And you just need to be a little bit more patient. You don't have to be in such a hurry. And this will also give your hands a chance to shallow out and get the club back down, rather than you start shifting this hard, this aggressively, and start rotating, then of course your hands have no further choice. So now watch how much more patient he is in getting back to the left side. He's not in a hurry, not in a hurry, not in a hurry. And now he's about as far as you are already at the top of your backswing in terms of your transition. And then he gets all the way over. So just by staying over here a little bit longer and letting your weight shift over there, which will help you make it easier to shift, rotate your hips a little bit more going back, and then just be patient as you start down, so that you don't have to fight with the club. Your muscles being pulled so tight that can pull the hands out toward the target line. Again, beautiful impact position, beautiful release, so much great stuff in your swing. I love it. But these are the main things that you need to work on your swing. And after that, dude, you're going to be hitting the ball incredibly well, because you already have so many great things in your swing.